Well, the image the media paints is very different to what Islam actually is like and what it is all about. And once you read beyond the headlines and the prejudices and the negativity, that the media portrays, you find a very different picture, and you find a very beautiful universe, something extraordinary, a value system that is very profound and poses a real ethical challenge to our day-to-day life here in the West. And it actually is very attractive, especially for women. Oh, I'm a total victim of Islamophobia. I became a Muslim in 1995 when I was interviewing rock stars for a living, and I had my own youth show in Germany. I was a VJ on MTV Europe, and lived the fast life. But when it became public knowledge in Germany that I was a Muslim, that I had become a Muslim, I was hounded by the media. A very negative press campaign followed. They accused me of having lost the plot, moving now behind the burqa, presenting my youth show from behind the burqa, and supporting terrorism. And within no time, I was sacked from my own television show, despite having had a freshly signed contract. And this was in 1995, way before 9/11. So, and I've never come back properly on mainstream television, and always wanted to do something to counter, this misperception, this dichotomy, this total paradox of, of these bad prejudices, that the media portrays about Islam. And so finally, 10 years later, I've written my book, From MTV to Mecca, which sort of narrates my story, with all the ups and downs and the many challenges that I faced as a convert to Islam, both from the mainstream society and the Muslims.
Thank you.
I think you have to make compromises on both sides, It depends on if you suddenly find yourself in a marriage with a born Muslim, as I did, years later, and suddenly I had to make all sorts of compromises and live a life that I never learned to be a part of Islam. In fact, I think it turned out more to be a life that a village woman from the 70s in Morocco would be living, rather than a modern person in a big city, in a big Western city. So, for example, I was not allowed to speak to any men whatsoever. And I was not allowed to even work, although I was the only one supporting us, and crazy rules and regulations that were wholly un-Islamic, but were sold to me as being Islamic. In fact, it was a matter of, perhaps him controlling me through the religion. So I had to make a lot of compromises, and eventually I came out of it and realized, what I did was actually not what God wants of me, It was all not Islamic that I suddenly was living, in the name of Islam. Yes, and on the other hand, you also have to be diplomatic and negotiate your way around the mainstream society, There are... so yeah, it's a tightrope walk, you could say. Generally, extremely warm and welcoming, I was always, I made friends, I made Muslim friends, a lot of them, and, progressively more. They invite me to events, they invite me into their homes, and, and generally are very, very warm and extend their friendship towards me. So I'm very grateful for that. However, I still have not, managed to find half of my religion, which is so-called, which is what marriage is called, you see. Marriage is deemed as half of the religion, and it has not, gone as far as that. Well, I think people don't have any idea about what converts to Islam go through. And they're very much in between position, not quite part of the mainstream society anymore, and also not really part of the Muslim community, which is very divided by ethnicity. I mean, where do we fit in? With the Bangladeshis, with the Pakistani crowd, or the Turks, or the Arabs, or the Persian people? It's we are really in the very beginning phase of establishing our identity here as British Muslims. And this difficult position, I think people can't even think about. We just don't feature. We are a minority within a minority, and it has a lot of challenges being in this position. For example, also racism is another revelation that came out in this Conrad report, which people I don't think can imagine. So I think the report is full of surprises, and I really hope the government will also see copies of this report in order to perhaps help implement some of these changes, you see. I mean, for example, mosques. In mosques, the sermons are usually in a language we don't understand. Now, as European or British Muslims, we should be going to a mosque in our own country where we understand what language is spoken. It's just one of the many factors that need to be considered and thought about. So there's a lot of room for improvement, and hopefully, but I see a bright future. I mean, in the end of the day, Britain is a wonderful country to live in, and the best place for Muslims in Europe, whether new or old, or heritage Muslims.